Hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with my jet lag, tired partner, Bob Rose, who just got back from New Orleans. Um, Bob, you were at this game.
Yeah,
Um,
hear that, John Butler? I was at that game.
yeah, he was at that game. Um, Before we start talking about it, real quick, I don't know how many people saw this over the weekend. Kevo, owner of Two Dudes Brew Q. I just got to say that slowly. Where Sean Williams works, gave an update, a little video update about Sean.
Yeah.
He was supposed to go into surgery this week, Monday, in fact. I think it was postponed um, because he's still struggling to breathe without a ventilator. He's about 50%, they said, which is better than where he was before. But it kind of, I think it's kind of saying that, explaining a little bit what happened to Sean. He fell asleep, and I think he either breathed in smoke or was overcome by smoke, and that got to him, and he passed out.
Mm.
Um, he has burns on his back and his left arm, and I guess his butt. The way Kevo was talking, because he was laying face down, um, and the unfortunate thing is, it looks like Kevo speculates or said that the doctors told him it's very possible Sean could lose all his fingers and his thumb on his left hand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which Sean's already fought through cancer and has the
Yep.
after effects of that battle. This is one more struggle for him. So
Yep.
please, everybody, say prayers for Sean, that he recovers. I know Kevo in the video talks about doing a fundraiser in October. I forgot what weekend it was, and I thought I wrote it down, but I guess I didn't. But it's on our group, Under the Dome
Mm-hmm.
podcast, Kevo's updates. Uh, there's two of them. Both videos he talked about the fundraiser they're doing because Sean lost
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
This apartment completely. I mean, his apartment's completely destroyed by fire. We talked about that when we found out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not just the fire; it's the smoke and also the water.
Yeah.
When they have to put it out, yet you lose everything. He was in his bedroom, so no doubt it happened in the front and got into his bedroom. Um, so yes, prayers for Sean.
I, the only thing, Alan, that I didn't get out of the second update that you posted from Kevo, and thank you, is Sean still in the medically induced coma? Do you know?
I believe he is. I
Okay.
believe he is. I think that's what they're doing to test his breathing on his own. Uh, they're monitoring that way, but yeah, he is going to be in tremendous pain
Yeah.
before they do the surgery. So that's part of the reason why he's in this coma, because it would just be too painful for him. Um, I joked about it, but it is very true. Your skin, um, you have to that skin has that dead skin has to come off,
Mm-hmm.
and that fresh skin with all the exposed nerve endings and things like that,
Yeah.
is what makes it so painful. Um, it's worse than picking at a scab. It really is. I mean, and I've
Yeah.
never experienced this. I've never had third-degree burns or worse, but I've had burns, um, and I've talked to people who have survived fires, and yeah, that is a miserable, miserable experience. So please keep them in your prayers, because if
Mm-hmm.
there's anything that's going to make you want to give up, the things that's happened to Sean over the past 3 years, that'll do it. Good night, Will.
He waved. You gonna say goodnight? You gonna say goodnight under the dome?
Good night.
Night. Oh man. Well, we talked about that Sunday night. I mean
Yeah.
Saturday night. It's something special to have that little boy. You're about to. How old is Will now? 4, 5.
He's five. He's five.
Okay. You're gonna hit that fun zone. That was my favorite years, 5 to 10. And not to say past 10 wasn't fun, but 5 to 10, not only are you the cool dad, but so much of what's happening to them between 5 and 10 is the first time, and it's
Hmm.
really, really cool. It really is. I promise you, we're not going to go over an hour tonight because I know you got jet lag. But let me just tell
Yeah.
you this: my son Matthew was 7, and he was playing playground basketball, and not once but twice against the same team. He may, you watching 6 and 7 year olds play basketball. It's just about dribbling, okay?
Hmm.
Learning how to dribble and walk.
Hmm.
But twice in the final seconds, he threw a last second basket to win the game when he was 7. And the look on his face, and he's playing with his friends, the look on his face and look on his friends' faces and stuff. It just, I mean, my wife said, this is, yeah, the game doesn't matter. You don't even remember the score,
Right.
but just that thrill of sinking the basket, hearing that buzzer go off, and you did it. You did it. And
Hmm.
that's the kind of stuff that's so damn fun when you're
Yeah.
that age. Um, Bob, I watched on TV. You watched it in person. What was it? Seemed like the crowd was really into it too. What was the game like? The game atmosphere like?
And the crowd was into it. Yeah, obviously until the wheels came off, and when they came off for the Saints, all four of them came off all at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but up until then, it was a very tense and intense atmosphere. You just then, most of the crowd was obviously Saints fans, but I think even the Buck fans that were within earshot around me, I think everybody there knew, just like the people watching on TV, that these battles are so close. Even though the scores might not have been, that you knew like one or two plays are going to turn the tide and open the floodgates for the other team. So there was a lot of nervous cheering. And when the Saints shot themselves in the foot, the couple of times, it sucked the air completely out of that entire dome, and it regained in an angry way uh, when the bench clearing brawl happened. But then, as you know from watching on TV, when that was in the process of the wheels falling off for the Saints, and the crowd very much lost its composure too.
Yeah, a lot of people pointed to during the game, especially on television, that the fight was a turning point. To me, that Ingram fumble, because this had a very old-fashioned football game feel. This whole
Hmm.
game, aside from the 3-3 score and being a defensive struggle, I felt like the team that could run the ball best on the opposing defense, that was the team that was going to be able to win that game. I didn't
Agreed.
think it was going to be touchdown passes. I really felt that this was going to be a physical between the tackles. We're going to smash the ball and get the touchdown. And whether it's
Hmm.
Fournette or Ingram, someone was going to score a touchdown on the ground. That's how I felt as this game was unfolding. So that drive, and I was impressed with Tony Jones. He had some good runs. He had an incredible blitz pickup. You
Yes.
probably see it on television in the dome, unless you look up at the video board. But he took out two guys um, because somebody slid off of when Pete and McCoy double teamed the defensive tackle, linebacker, or somebody slipped out behind him in a stunt,
Hmm.
and Joe spotted him and took him out and gave Winston an extra second and a half to throw a nice pass for a completion. And it was a great play, and it really prevented them from blitzing a whole heck of a lot. Um, because normally I would have thought they were going to blitz them the whole game because of the problems the Saints offensive line had. And I felt like they picked it up, their blitz pickups, and I heard Jameis calling out protections and
Hmm.
doing a lot more than you heard in the first game. But um, it felt like Winston was just off. all game, except for that first drop. Winston was off the whole game, so I was really counting on Ingram, um, uh, Dwayne Washington, Tony Jones, even Taysom Hill, just pounding the rock and getting the score that way.
Yeah, and it seemed like the Saints were determined to do just that. And yeah, they did. It's hard to say that either team won the battle of the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball, but I will acknowledge that the Saints did a better job through those first three quarters, especially of controlling the tempo in the trenches. Yeah, because if you look at the final, and the final numbers will dictate that too. I think the Saints only had 103 yards rushing. Give me a sec. 102 yards rushing. But the Buccaneers had 72 yards on 30 carries. They just could not get Fournette going. And most of those, in fact, all of those 102 yards, for the Saints came within those first three quarters before they had to start throwing the football. So, those are pretty good numbers, especially against what I will acknowledge is a very, very good Tampa Bay defense, particularly in their front seven. But you're right. Winston's timing seemed off. He still seems extremely hesitant to pull the trigger, and terrified of making a mistake. And I know the floodgates open with interceptions, but by that point in the game, Jameis had to press the issue, to force the issue, and that's Saints fans. That's when we got bad Jameis. It's not the three interceptions that bothered me as much as I'm watching him, and there were several times where he could have tucked the ball and ran. Now we find out after the fact. That he's dealing with what's got to be an extremely painful back injury. So that explains his hesitance to run. But ever since he's taken over the starting job in New Orleans, he's been, at least by my view, extremely hesitant to pull the trigger on pass plays where coverage is close. And because of that, we saw with an awful receiving core last year, you could just never get any traction in the passing game. And this year, if your quarterback is hesitant to pull the trigger on a timing-based offense, then this offense is going to continue to spin its wheels. Forget the three interceptions, guys. That's going to happen. It happens with every quarterback, but we know it happens with Jameis Winston. My problem is, you go back and, if you have the stomach to rewatch this game, watch it through the first three quarters when Jameis does have an opportunity to throw the ball. And you look at his eyes, and he does seem locked onto a receiver or receivers, but he won't pull that trigger.
Well, and one of the things that was frustrating is, and has to do with John's comment here, Winston was very much in his own head. He wanted to make this game to be his statement game to show the Bucs that they made a mistake.
Right.
And he was determined to hit that deep pass. And in the process, he passed up a lot of open guys underneath. I mean, wide open underneath. And when you start doing that, it really. And the thing about Olave's those passes to Olave was technically open. I mean, he had two steps on the safety, and he wanted that glory play. He really wanted that glory play, and it just felt like, when it wasn't happening those first two times, why are you running a third time? Why are you trying to get it all back, especially after the fight? Your defense looks shook up. You did get them to go 3 and out after that turnover.
Yeah.
You got the punt that you needed. But after the fight and everything, let's get everybody calm down. This is a perfect time to feed Ingram the ball again to show you do have confidence in him. I know Ingram's put the ball down twice in 2 games, so I know that's a concern. But you want to show that you got the confidence in him to carry this game. Let's go ahead and run the football. At worst, you still got 7 minutes left. Play the field position game. They're not moving the ball in your defense. Don't try and get it all back in one play. And, Hardy started taking that ball out on those punts. And he was getting good yardage too.
He was.
So your special teams, you're so close to breaking it. Let win this game as a team, okay, and just do not let it become this is my revenge game, and I'm going to show you. Save that for Tampa, in front of those
Mm-hmm.
things. Save it when you feel confident you're going to get that play. As yeah, they announced the broken vertebra in his back, and it's really his low. It sounds like it's his lower back. And when they say fractured, it could be anything. It could be from a hairline fracture to
Mm-hmm.
a bone chip or whatever. It's painful, but it's not going to cause paralysis. It's not debilitating, and clearly it's not affecting his throws because he's throwing
Yeah.
that ball. I mean, I think it's just painful for him as the game goes on. His muscles start tightening, so it starts becoming more arm than whole body when you throw the ball. So, I mean, but it's not affecting his ability to get the ball out there. It just may be affecting his ability to get deep. Um,
Right.
so I just I could feel the frustration building in
Mm-hmm.
James. I think the Bucs defense had that too. They sensed it because I'm sure their game plan was make him lose patience, and eventually
Yep.
he'll start throwing us the ball. And I think that was their game plan going into this game.
Yeah,
But
there's no doubt about it. But you know what, Alan? I'm going to put some of this on the Saints coaching too. Um,
yeah,
at the end of the half, when Dennis Allen let the clock tick down, and I don't remember whether he took a timeout or just accepted the delay of game penalty.
oh no, he kept the delay game. He had a timeout
Okay.
left, but he accepted the delay game penalty.
Okay. I was absolutely livid, yeah, because before the delay of game penalty, they had an opportunity to bring out Lutz for a 57, 58-yard field goal attempt.
Mhm.
Now, I will acknowledge that for any kicker, even one of the best in the game, like Lutz, in the dome, like Lutz was, that's far from a gimme field goal. But we've seen Lutz hit that kick plenty of times in the past. Uh, I didn't have a problem with letting the clock tick down, but for the life of me, I do not understand why Dennis Allen didn't take that timeout and bring out Lutz for the field goal attempt. Of course, I realize that if Lutz misses it, that gives Tampa Bay golden field position to hit a pass or two and get into field goal range themselves. But with as well as your defense is playing up to that
Yeah.
point, and my only issue was that they really didn't get any pressure on Tom Brady like we have seen in the last 4 meetings against them. But they were covering extremely well. Lattimore had Evans locked in a box like he always does, and just the entire secondary, even though they're down Paulson and Adebo and et cetera, I thought they played extremely well in the first half in particular. So it almost felt to me like Dennis Allen coached scared. And then, after the fight, I thought that the entire staff did a poor job, and I will also throw the locker room leaders under the bus on this one. You have to reel it in. You have to reel your team in. It's an emotional team. It's an intense team, and it's an intense rivalry between these teams. And I thought that this was the first game, then the first moment where you really sat there and thought this would have been a hell of a lot different if Sean Payton were on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think Peyton goes for that 57-yarder. Now, I obviously was not at the game, so I did not see Lutz warming up and seeing how far he was kicking it. It may be possible that he had talked to Lutz, and Lutz, I'm not feeling the long field goal, or they saw him kicking that far and it wasn't there. But I was the same way though. Watching from television, I was like, okay, you learned your lesson from last week. You're letting the clock run down, so there's basically no time left.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you're going to call timeout. You're going to think about it because you can't take it with you. Call timeout, think about it, go line up for the field goal, and take the shot. And I think there would have been like 3 or 4 seconds left, maybe 10 seconds left, because I think there was about the difference in the clock. Because I know Brady just took a knee and went in.
Yeah.
After the punt, but in a game where points are at a premium, I'm trying that field goal right there.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I have the confidence in my blocking, I have the confidence in Lutz's leg, that he can get it. And I have the confidence in my defense that it's not going to give up a chump play.
Right.
I don't know how many timeouts Tampa had, though. That's the only thing I don't remember. If they have all 3 timeouts, maybe they get in a position to kick a field goal if he misses. But again, we're talking 10 seconds. It's still going to be a long field goal for suck up.
Right.
So, I'm taking a chance. I'm taking a chance on there and kicking that field goal. I'm not punting at that point, not before halftime, especially because I'm not getting the ball in the second half. They are, so I'm going to take the points. So let me ask, I want to talk about the fight. The television broadcast really showed pretty clearly what was being said to Lattimore. And the big controversy over on Monday was that why was Bruce Arians on the sidelines?
Yeah.
Instead of in the coach's booth where his seat was. Why is he? And then even Nick Underhill, I think Duncan, and Dennis Allen all mentioned that not only was Arians on the sidelines, but he was also in that area. If you all pay attention to the sidelines, there's an area, you look at the dotted lines, where that is the bench area. So only authorized people are allowed in that area. If you can be on the sidelines, but you got to be outside of that box. So that's why you used to see like Jerry Jones and Arthur. What the hell is the name of the owner of the Falcons?
I think you had it right, Arthur Blank. Yeah,
Arthur Blank. Yeah, well, standing outside there, and they stand off to the side. They're not by the coaches now. Tom Benson used to, back in the day, in the last 30 seconds, whatever, run up and go hug the coach and stuff like that. That's different. But this is the middle of the third quarter, or early fourth quarter. Sorry, early the fourth quarter. What is he doing there? That's a coach. So is he a de facto coach? Is Bowles just a figurehead? And the other thing, you can clearly read Arians' lips when he says, "Go get him."
Yeah.
Just before Evans takes off to go sucker punch Lattimore. And the other thing that pissed me off was, as I'm watching this game, watching this fight unfold, here comes Russell Gage. He throws a punch. The ref throws his hat because they're out of flags now. So they're throwing a hat. But you see Russell Gage come over and throw a punch out there. I'm like, okay, his ass has to be gone too. And no one called him out on that. They just threw Lattimore, who did not deserve to get thrown out. Because I don't care how much you trash talk, he doesn't swing at anybody until he gets hit. Now, he gets shoved by Fournette, and he shoves back at Fournette. But we've seen that before. He doesn't swipe at Fournette's helmet. He doesn't do it. It's a shove. And we've seen officials come in, break that up. And of course, Brady, the little bitch ass that he is, has to come up and get in somebody's face. And I know what Lattimore said. Lattimore had to say, "Quit whining, you little bitch, and get your ass to the sidelines." And that's when Brady turned around. Because he threw his arm up like that, like, get out of here kind of thing. But I know what because Brady whines constantly.
Yeah. I don't even know where to begin. Yeah, as far as Arians goes, all he is officially anyway through the Buccaneers site is an advisor. So
Yeah.
he did not have traditional clearance to be where he was on the sideline. The Buccaneers brass and maybe even Arians himself, they tried to say, well, there was no room for me in the press box. Bullshit. Because I've seen the seating chart for the press coverage, and the general manager Todd liked Arians and several others. They had assigned seats in that press box. So that's BS. Arians at the very.
Brady Jackson and Jonathan Sullivan know about the press box. They went up there and ate the food.
Right. So Arians, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be fined as a team for letting that happen. Arians should be fined as an individual and suspended from all team activities, whatever role he plays in them, for X amount of period, probably a week, a slap on the wrist, and be barred from the sidelines, at least for the remainder of the 2022 season. And again, it's not like, according to titles, it's not like you are suspending a coach here. You're suspending, according to what his title is, you're suspending a cheerleader from the game. And as far as the fight itself, I will mildly disagree with you that Lattimore should have been thrown out. And I say that because of this. All the way back to high school and elementary fights, I mean, forget sports. The guy who retaliates is always going to get punished.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, and I know it's easy for us to sit here and say it, but you put either one of us in that situation, and we're going to go ape shit too. Lattimore needs to have better composure under those circumstances. Because, and again, I'm not going to blame him for it. I'm just going to say, shoulda, woulda, couldas, because Brady's touchdown pass that happened after that, he threw it over PJ Williams, who wouldn't have been in the game if Marshawn Lattimore was not suspended. You can say, I heard some people suggest that Evans was basically told to jump on that grenade and take Lattimore out. It wouldn't shock me, but that's we're never going to find out that truth. But watching from the broader scale, from up in the stands, there was tons of jawing between Lattimore and Brady, and it's both players are constant talkers. So it's hard to speculate who started it. It probably was going on nonstop, but Lattimore then turned his attention to, he was splitting his trash talk between Brady and the entire Buccaneers sideline. He sort of focused on Arians, but it was a broader scale, because I'm watching and I'm waiting for an official to throw the bullshit taunting flag. And when that didn't happen, Fournette and Lattimore got into it. Then Fournette, through the first blow, you'd call it a shove, but it was at his head. Fournette should have been ejected. I agree that, okay, you're going to toss Lattimore. All right, I get it. You definitely toss Evans, the biggest cowardly thug in the NFL. You definitely toss him. You have to toss Fournette too. You have to. And I agree with you. You have to toss Russell Gage because he threw a punch.
Yeah.
I know Brady should have. Yeah, Brady was a big part in instigating, in gaslighting. But you're not going to see Tom Brady thrown out. So forget that there.
Yeah, and he didn't punch anybody. He just was
right. Right, because like you said, he's always going to run like a little bitch. Evans is always going to, if Evans gets in a physical confrontation, he's always going to come at a player's back like a little bitch. And that's essentially what most of the Buccaneers team is. Evans, in my humble opinion, should get 3 games. And because this is not the first incident. This is not the first incident of its type. So I mean, my takeaway from that is, there should have been 4 players ejected. Lattimore, because you get the guy that retaliate. You have to. It sucks, but you have to. Fournette, Gage, and Evans should have all been tossed. Arians should have been immediately removed from the sidelines and tossed. I get the offsetting unsportsmanlikes, but you have to throw an extra one towards the Tampa Bay team, whether you focus on a player or the team, and give the Saints an extra 15 yards out of it, because the entire situation would not have happened, would not have even come close to happening if it weren't for Evans, Brady, Fournette, and or Arians. You could single out any one of them, or you could lump them in as a group. Or should have been offsetting, unsportsmanlikes, taunting, personal foul, whatever, along with an extra one to assign it to the Tampa Bay bench or whatever you have to do. That's just my take on it.
You assign it to the bench and you say Evans is removed from the sidelines. That's really that would have been. And the Bucs would have lost their mind if you'd have lost Evans and Fournette, and that would have been too much. But and somebody on Twitter said, you realize that if Penning comes back for the Tampa game, the fight between Penning and Devin White is going to be epic. And I responded with, I'm here for it so long as Penning picks White up and throws him at Arians on the sideline. I would enjoy it. A little WWE, WWF, Mid-South Wrestling move right there. That would be extremely enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And the shame was the Saints really did lose their composure because that's how you end up with 12 men on the field on the punt. That's how you end up throwing the interception. That's how you end up. Hang on. The first penalty, the 12 men on the field in the punt formation. Okay, I don't like it, but I can understand it. Second game, somebody thought they heard their name called out for the punt protection. They ran out there and didn't get off the field in time. But the penalty on Roby on third down, when he drops, he hits him with the shoulder, and even Mike Pereira on the broadcast said, there's no penalty here. I don't see it. The runner initiated the contact with the helmet, and it's not even helmet to helmet, it's helmet to shoulder. It's a terrible call. And yes, the Saints benefited from BS roughing the passer kind of calls early in the game, or unnecessary roughness kind of penalties early in the game. So this is a makeup call, but it's a hell of a time for a makeup call with 7 minutes or 6 minutes left in the game. And the Bucs are only driving because of penalties. That's a 15-yard penalty. It flipped the field. They went from their 38 to the Saints 40 after that penalty, or 42. And then 2 plays later, there's another flag on Tuttle this time for getting tangled up with Fournette when Fournette was blocking. He wasn't trying to run for a pass. No. He was blocking. And they called defensive holding on that. And that's another 5 yards. So now you're in field goal range because of 20 yards of penalties. Well, 25, you want to count the 12 men on the field. But it was so frustrating, and you could just see it all coming apart after that. And when the Saints came back on offense, they were not focused on.
No.
They were trying to get it all back in one play, which is the one thing that Jameis Winston cannot do, because that's when bad Jameis comes out, when you try and get it all back in one play. And, he finally hits Olave, and he made a rookie mistake. He's stumbling and falling and did not cradle the ball. He held it out away from his body, so it's a fumble. It aggravated me. Yes, the play was open. I get it. But you need to get your composure back. I know the Bucs are fired up, but you've got to just, control yourself and be patient. And the
Mm-hmm.
same, they played like there was 2 minutes left in the game, and you're down by 2 scores when you're only down by one. So it was a very frustrating game. Very frustrating game at the end.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know as well as I do, and I always say this, that when you play a Tom Brady team, you're also playing a Great Britain Queen assassin Roger Goodell and his goons. Thank you, John Butler. By the way, it's the same way when you play an Aaron Rodgers team, and getting that way when you play a Patrick Mahomes team. But anyway, with Brady, it's a well-known fact, and everybody throughout the league knows it. I have never seen a more gifted touchdown drive in the history of me watching football. Certainly not at the NFL level, and the Saints don't have any control over that part. I get that, but like you said, and you have a defense, a New Orleans defense is out of sorts. That just they need to rein in their emotions. So I think the last thing that I want to do as an offense, if I'm the Saints, is try to make a big play and go for the jugular. I need to control the ball. Move the chains, get a couple of first downs, let that defense calm down and reorganize themselves. Because like you and I had both said, for the first 3 quarters, the Saints were moving the ball well enough, and they had. By that point, they had established the run well enough that the play action game was there. You didn't need to use it to go deep with it. You could have found Thomas or Landry for a 20 or 25-yard gain. That takes the sails out of that Buccaneers defense just as easily as a bomb down the field.
Well, and that was one of the things that was bothering fans watching on television. I'm sure it was worse in the stadium. He is passing up short passes to take that deep shot, and guys are open. He's got Thomas at 7 yards. He's got Landry open because the Bucs are playing a soft zone again. So, and then when they would send somebody in, most of the time the Saints were picking those up nicely if you just take the underneath throw. One of the things that you said earlier about not being able to get to Brady, if you look, they were doing a lot of quick throws with Brady.
Yes.
Unless the Saints were just rushing 3 and dropping everybody else in the coverage, Brady was doing 1, 2, 3, get rid of it. 1, 2, get rid of it. To avoid getting beat up on and avoid getting the sacks and the turnovers. That was their game plan, and it seemed like that opportunity was there for the Saints, but for whatever reason, they wanted to take the deep shots. And you can put that on the coaching staff and Jameis. I do both because, they may have dialed up the big play, but you don't have to throw that pass. You can look, you can say, okay, it's not there. I'm going to take that underneath guy and just keep moving the chains. Now I've lost my train of thought. Right before I said that, I was going to ask you something else about the game. It'll come. Oh, okay. So with Winston's back injury, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, with Winston's back injury, there were a lot of calls by fans, and they blamed the injuries for Winston's poor performance. They wanted to see Andy Dalton go in. Now, according to Dennis Allen, Winston can't hurt his back anymore. It's painful, but and he says, and Winston says it's not affecting him. Do you play Andy Dalton this week?
No, if that's the truth, and that's a big if with a back injury. Because it's not and it is good. If he could injure himself worse, then you absolutely, for Jameis Winston's health, you don't play him. Screw wins or losses. But with a back injury, it's not only a question of how much pain can Jameis Winston tolerate, which is key, and only Jameis can answer that. It's also the torque. Is that back going to allow him to get the torque he needs to throw the ball in the spots on the field that he needs, to throw it under. We saw, a rapidly declining Drew Brees was still able to hit certain spots on the field to take advantage of defensive coverages because Drew's just that accurate. Jameis is not that accurate. Jameis needs to threaten defenses with his arm strength and his ability to throw the ball on a frozen rope. So if that back injury still allows him to do that, then, folks, he is still the right man for this offense. But if there's any doubt whatsoever, and again, only Jameis Winston, Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, and the Saints trainers know this because we'll never know it. If there's any doubt, then you have to put Andy Dalton in because this coming week is as close to a must-win game as Week 3 can ever be. You can beat the Carolina Panthers with Andy Dalton. You cannot beat the Carolina Panthers with an injured Jameis Winston that's trying to do too much. So again, if he can make the throws that my offense is asking him to make, and if he can tolerate the pain, then Jameis Winston is still the man for this offense.
Well, and that was one of the things that I was listening to other people comment about this, and I thought about it as well. Brees throws a touchdown pass at 11 broken ribs. He falls. The ball hits the ground. He bends over, picks it up, and throws a touchdown pass. Michael Jordan played a championship game with the flu and a high fever. Joe Montana, when he was at Notre Dame, a bowl game, sick with the flu. Kirk Gibson, famous home run for the Dodgers, and he can barely walk. And he hits that home run, and he's trotting and limping as he does the circle. Kurt Schilling with the blood all over the sock. Those become the shots of legend, and. Winston's thinking to himself, this would be a hell of a story. I've got a damaged or a broken back, and I beat my old team throwing 3 touchdown passes and 300 and something yards to prove to them that they were wrong, and this is my new home, and all these other things. So that story is in his mind. So it just added more fuel to that emotional fire that I want to win this game. This is the game I've got circled. The other one I got circled is the one in Tampa, which I need. But this one I need in front of the home crowd where I can get the adulation I want for going over this mountain and beating my old team. And that's why Winston, I think, had to play this game. I think about the 2002 season with Aaron Brooks, where he clearly could not throw the ball anymore those last 3 games because of the AC joint injury. The Saints are not at that point. This is not. They don't need to just win one game to make the playoffs. It's early in the season. It's just something that if he takes a break, he probably can recover from. It probably is something that he needs some rest. It's not going to heal, but it won't be as tight. He can get treatment for it and everything else.
Right.
My concern is that, if you don't play Dalton this week against Carolina, which is they're not a very good team. Matt Rule is probably very close to being fired soon. But if you don't play him this week, when do you play him? Do you play him in London, which is in 2 weeks from now? That'd be tough, So you're talking now Week 5. That's the Bengals. So I don't know what.
You have a pink shirt I can borrow for tomorrow.
A pink shirt.
Yes, I don't own pink.
Yes, I do, but it's a polo shirt.
I'll try it on. It's like pink, so we have to wear pink if we want to wear jeans.
Okay, I'll go find it. It's Spirit Week at his school, and she's raiding my closet for shirts. And it's very telling that I have a pink shirt, but my wife does not. Take that for what you will. I have 2 pink shirts, by the way. Um, okay, but yeah, I mean, I'm worried that when do you play him? When do you give him that easy game to recover? Um, it could be. I kind of feel like Carolina would be the game to do it if you're going to do it.
And
So
that would be the other major question. Is this the type of injury, that can, I don't want to use the word heal, but yeah,
that's why
get better, improve.
Seahawks 2 weeks.
Yeah. Is it the type of ailment that can improve with a week or two rest? Because yeah, actually, if it is, I'll retract a little bit. If it is, and Winston can be markedly better, uh, and more mobile with that back with a week or two rest, then I absolutely agree with you that Carolina is the game to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at the schedule. I misspoke because Minnesota's next week. That's in London, so they're flying straight out of Carolina to go to Minnesota to go to London for that
Hmm.
week. Then you're home for the Seahawks,
Hmm.
and then you're home for the Bengals. So Seattle could be a game where you can rest Winston, play Dalton as well if he struggles. But my other fear is if you lose either of these games at Carolina or against the Vikings in London, have you dug yourself a hole that'll be difficult to climb out of, given where you are in the season. Because after the Seahawks, granted, the Bengals, they're 0-2, I believe, huh? Or they one
Yes.
and
Yes.
one. No, they're 0 and
Nah,
2.
they're on two.
0 and 2. The Bengals don't look like the team that we thought they were going to be. And I did say last week that usually it's around week 4 you start seeing the identity of a team
Hmm.
come out. The preseason is over and players are getting used to it. Um, I don't. The Bengals could turn it on any day now. The
Sure.
Cardinals, I watched the end after the Green Bay game. No, not Green Bay. Who was it in the afternoon? Dallas and Bengals game. It was a
Hmm.
Dallas Bengals game. After that game was over, they went to the Cardinals Raiders game, which that was
Yes.
the most bizarre ending I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
I don't know, wheels falling off. I don't know what the hell the Raiders did. How did you lose that game? And then somebody slapped Murray when it came to
Uh-huh.
the line. Yeah, so I mean, who knows what you're gonna get out of the Cardinals? So yeah, then you hit the meat of the schedule when you start hitting the Raiders, Ravens, Steelers, Rams, 49ers. Then it's December already. I
Hmm.
mean, just uh, you've got to come out of this first half of the year with a winning record, um,
Hmm.
so you can ride out some of these other games that are be much more challenging, much more physical. Um,
Right. And yeah, particularly since your first 5 games are against NFC opponents.
mhm.
Yeah, you need to take some or most of those tiebreakers, out of that first month or so. Otherwise, even if you do get turned around after a slow start, you're gonna be facing the wrong end of a lot of tiebreakers coming down the stretch of a season.
Absolutely. I do remember the other thing I was going to tell you. We were talking about Joe Montana and off the air. We were talking about Tom Brady. Um, you know, we talk about the bullshit calls by the officiating, and I think a lot of that comes from what you and I was talking about off the air. How neither one of us fear Brady.
No.
We really don't. I don't get nervous when I see Tom Brady with the ball. I know we can hit him. And it's not just that we've beaten him 4 out of 5 times in the regular season or 4 out of the 6 times we played him. It's, I just don't, I mean, Tom Brady is not Joe Montana in my mind. He's not Roger Staubach or John Elway. Joe Montana, I watched that man his entire career. And that man you could be destroying him for 58 minutes and it doesn't matter what the score is. All of a sudden, with less than 2 minutes left in the game, here he comes. And now you can't touch him. And he is
Mhm.
now picking you apart. And it's cold and it's precision, and there's no bitching at the officials. He's just up there. Boom, John Taylor. Boom, Roger Craig. Boom, John Franks. Oh, here comes Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice again. And, it doesn't matter where your defense is. He knows it's the wrong defense, and he's going to exploit it. Um, Roger Staubach the same way. John
Mhm.
Elway, your boy, the same way. Something was going to happen, especially if you're Cleveland. Something's going to happen when you're playing this guy, and you can have him on the 1 foot line, and he has no timeouts, and there's a minute left in the game. He needs a touchdown to win. He's going to get it. He's just going to get it. And you'll be like, it's 30-15. How in the hell do you give up a 20-yard completion? You just did.
Exactly. And yeah, but if you're an older Saints fan like Alan or myself, you know this to be true. You feel pretty confident that this defense can control, contain, make plays against Tom Brady. You fear the refs. It's the refs that you look at after every play.
No, you know my play.
You are after a whatchamacallit, after a pass play, that turns in the Saints' favor. You hold your breath, and if you're watching on the TV, you look at the corner of the TV to see if there's a flag. If you're there in person, you're looking around the field. And I found myself doing this on Sunday. Throughout the first 3 quarters, at every pass play that was knocked down or or off target. I didn't cheer at all. My neck still kind of hurts because I was scanning the field, looking for yellow flags. But it was completely different against Joe Montana. You knew, and a 10-9 Saints loss against the 49ers, 13-12 Saints loss against the 49ers. The Dome Patrol and that entire New Orleans defense beat Jesus out of Montana.
Opening
game long.
Monday Night Football, opening
Yes.
game, 1990.
But I knew going into the fourth quarter, New Orleans is not going to win this game. I knew it. And I still got pissed when it happened, but I knew it. That's the difference between Joe Montana. Joe Montana is the greatest of all time. Period. And I don't say that. I say that out of respect and fear. I don't say that out of like because I despise Joe Montana. I despise every team he played on all the way back to high school. Yeah, Ringgold High School. I'm thrown. I hate you. I hate Joe Montana as a person. I hate what he stood for, stands for. I hate everything about him. But he was the greatest quarterback I've ever seen.
He was just surgical. And my brother mentioned, unless Jerry Rice drops the football at the goal line, it's called a touchdown. Yeah, that's 1989 in the Dome. Mm-hmm. Two of them. There's 2 plays like that. But yeah, oh man. And then the forward pass and Football Life does a thing on the forward pass, and for whatever reason, they thought it was a good idea to show this. The Superdome used to have cameras in a crow's nest, they called it, behind the goalpost. So you got this shot, and it was supposed to be for field goals, but you would also get this shot that came down, and you can see from the goal line when they're crossing. And God, don't you know, a Football Life the forward pass shows that play from 1989 where, Rice is coming down the field and he goes to stick the ball up in the air because he's going to show off he scored a touchdown. He drops it, and you can see he's a good 3 yards from the goal line from that angle, and that ball comes out and it rolls out the end zone. That's touchback, and Rice punches the Saints logo because he's mad. And they just go, oh, no, that's touchdown. That's touchdown.
Yeah.
Because you're Jerry Rice and you get the calls. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's just, there's a couple bullshit calls in that play. And that's the thing. I mean, you think about it. I remember when we were playing Tom Brady, I'm remembering games that we won. The 2009 game is probably the most famous one. Mm-hmm. But, you think about the games that you beat Tom Brady, okay? Joe Montana, you think about the games that you lost to him because you lost so many of them to Joe Montana. That opening game, 1990 season in the Dome, Monday Night Football, 13-12. You think about the woulda, coulda, shoulda game from '87. You think about, just go down the list, the '89 game that we were just talking about. Every time the Saints seemed to get, there was the 4 touchdown game Bobby Hebert had in the beginning of the 1988 season against Montana, and they lost. It's just he did it to you so often in so many different ways that you got PTSD.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I did not want Joe Montana to have the ball. I wanted to keep him on the sideline because he couldn't hurt us over there. A punt scared me. Don't punt the ball. You got to get first down. So yeah, it's frustrating as anything. Real quick, before we get out of here, talking about next week with Carolina. How do you feel about this game? I mean, it's a must-win game for me, for the Saints.
Yeah, it is. Matt Rule, Carolina coach, I agree with you. He's dead man walking. I think we both agreed on that before the start of the regular season. But the Panthers just aren't a talented team. However, they played 2 close games against also fairly bad teams and lost them. The one thing that you're going to get out of the Carolina Panthers is a physical battle. These guys are going to brawl you on both sides of the line. The Saints offensive line better come to play. I will agree with you that I saw some improvement out of that New Orleans offensive line. It's going to have to continue to improve. Regardless, I don't care who's a quarterback, whether it's Dalton, Jameis, whomever it is. The Saints are going to need to run the ball and balance. Because this Carolina defense, they had one of the best pass defenses in the league last year, and they came out of the gate with that again this year. Now it was against the Browns and the Giants, I grant you. But the Panthers have defensive.
Somehow.
Right. The Panthers got to they have playmakers on every level. Brian Burns has been a thorn in the Saints offensive line side, and they're physical. They're big and physical along that defensive line. They have a terrific secondary. Carolina does. So you can't. They play a lot of soft coverage. At mush zone. To use a basketball term. So if you're Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton, whomever, you can't expect to hit too many big plays down the field. You gotta be precise on your short and intermediate throws early in the game. Get those safeties to cheat up, and then maybe you can hit them over the top if they're caught cheating. But to do that, you have to be precise with your intermediate throws, and you need to run the ball. They can beat the Panthers without Kamara. I don't know what his health status is. We'll find it. We'll start to get a better idea tomorrow. But you need to win the turnover battle, because if you do that, the Saints defense far outmans what the Panthers are going to bring at New Orleans offensively. That offense still revolves around Christian McCaffrey, so obviously you have to contain him. But they still, even with their number 1 draft choice, the left tackle, they're still a mess along the offensive line. So you can rush Baker Mayfield. Opponents of Jameis Winston, some proponents of Jameis Winston will say you get good Jameis and bad Jameis. You get good Baker and bad Baker. At least with Jameis Winston, you have the capability of winning a shootout. With Baker Mayfield, they need to run the ball. Otherwise, that Panthers offense is going absolutely nowhere. So it starts with running the ball. I love what the Saints defense did along the line of scrimmage last week. They need to do it again to force Baker Mayfield to beat you, because as talented as DJ Moore is and as big play threat as Robbie Anderson is, I don't think they can match up against the Saints secondary. Who may be without Paulson Adebo again, but there's still some depth back there.
Yeah, it's tough without Paulson Adebo back there, because I think Roby is a good inside corner. I think he's struggling on the outside.
Yes.
So, I need to see we need Adebo back out there, and I don't know if it's a high ankle sprain. They just don't want to call it that, but it sure looks like it the way it's taken so long for him to bounce back from it. Yeah, I think that's where the battle is. You have to shut down the run. You have to shut down Christian McCaffrey, and this is going to be a lot on Pete Werner. He's going to be the one that's going to have to go after McCaffrey and don't let him get out in space. A lot's been made of the fact the Saints haven't sacked the quarterback. 2 weeks ago, it was because Mariota's so mobile. Last week, it was, because Brady was getting rid of the ball so quickly. It was 1-2, get rid of it. Mayfield probably holds that ball almost as long as Winston does, trying to make the play. I don't think, as bad as the Tampa offensive line is, I think their coaches aren't nearly as good as the Tampa coaches, and they're going to let Mayfield hold that ball longer.
Yeah.
So I think this is the game where I think you're going to see Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, and et al. Start getting those sacks. And I think this is also the game where we need to start winning the turnover battle. We need to force those turnovers. It's definitely on the defense. That's why I wasn't opposed to the idea of playing Dalton, because we just need the quarterback to be a game manager at this point against a team like this. You can run the football. You should be able to run the football with Ingram, and probably Murray gets called up this week.
I could see that.
Especially if Kamara can't go. And I think, the short passes, I think that's going to get drummed into Winston's head. This game isn't nearly as important emotionally to him. So I think you're going to see Michael Thomas targeted a lot more than Olave.
Yeah.
I thought Olave 11 targets or 12 targets, something like that. That was too many, especially when you have Thomas doing what he was doing. That catch along the sideline when he was on his tippy toes. I mean, at that point, I'm just like, that's it. That's Michael Thomas. That's the Michael Thomas we're used to seeing. I think this is a game that the Saints can build a lot of confidence heading to London to play a much tougher opponent in Minnesota, despite what you saw the Eagles do to them Monday night. I think in this game, they've got a great chance of building that confidence they need to deal with Justin Jefferson and Delvin Cook. I'm not so worried about Kirk Cousins, but, Kirk Cousins, you play him in a primetime game, you have even better shot at putting him away. But, Kirk Cousins is somebody you can get to as well. If you come out of these games, come back to the Dome against Seattle and Geno Smith, 3-1, you're in good shape. Come back 2-2 or 1-3. That's not a good recipe. You don't want to go to that Seattle game looking to get better. You want to start being in the upswing. For the next time you come home.
Absolutely.
You've got a lot of road games in the winter too. After the Rams game, you've got four out of 5 games on the road: at 49ers, at Tampa, you're home for the Falcons, at the Browns, at the Eagles. I mean, and the way the Eagles are playing right now, Eagles look like they're the NFC favorite. They really do. I mean, the Rams had trouble with the Falcons last week. So I think this is a critical game for them. How do you see this game turning out?
I think it'll be close on the scoreboard. And Panthers Saints games usually are. I think it'll be close on the scoreboard, but I think it will be. I could feel it being one of those games where, even though the score is close, when you're watching it, if you're rooting for the Saints, you just feel like the Saints are going to be in control of the ultimate outcome. So I could see the New Orleans coming out of here with maybe even something ugly like a 17-13. Or a 20-17, but I feel pretty confident that the Saints are going to win. It just, yeah, they have a whole lot of timing issues, bumps in the road, and now injuries to worry about offensively. And they're still trying to figure out who they are identity-wise. So, yeah, until then, like you said, it's going to be on the defense to win it. I see the defense, more than capable of doing so. And as long as the offense can manage to avoid turnovers, they have the playmakers to make just enough plays against Carolina while they figure themselves out. So I think the Saints will win, but I believe it'll be I know it'll be a low-scoring game.
I'm going to go out a little bit further. I'm going to say it's going to be a 27-13 game for Saints, only because I feel like this is a game where they get better at. This is, if you think about the 2017 season, they started 0-2. You think about 2018, 1-1, and in the 1-1, it was like an ugly loss. I mean, an ugly, win and a bad loss. 2018. Then they started to figure out and get going, and I think this is the game where they figure it out and get going. So I really feel like the Panthers are a good tonic for this team right now to get that confidence, to get all this stuff together. So John Butler, real quick, says Michael Thomas or Marcus Colston, who would you favor as the best Saints receiver? I mean, Colston's got the records right now.
He does. And I love Marcus Colston. I think Michael Thomas is the better player. When you compare, and Michael Thomas is basically in his prime now. We all saw Marcus Colston in his prime. I think Michael Thomas is the better pure wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm that way too. But if I'm got a guy I got to throw to directly over the middle who's going to get creamed, I'm going to Colston. Because Colston just was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I think Thomas, as a route runner, as catching the ball in the sidelines, using his body to make these kind of catches, Thomas is the superior receiver. He really is. But Colston is just that tough, hardworking, blue collar, keeps quiet kind of guy. So, Bayou Blitz tomorrow. What you got coming up?
We're going to continue the Buccaneers post-mortem. Going to examine, maybe sift through some of that ash and find out some of the other things they did right. We're going to preview the Panthers game. I do not have a guest. I thought about lining one up. I'm like, no. Just what you said before about this needs to be a get right week for the Saints. I think that we're going to focus more on that. What they need to do, like I said, preview the Panthers matchup and do a post-mortem. Hopefully, we'll know a little bit more about Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's back and Alvin Kamara's rib. Come showtime, we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll get some information from John Hendricks. About that, some more clarification from John Hendricks about that before we go on air.
Absolutely. And I'm going to make an appearance on the Cat Chronicles.
Beautiful.
Talking about the Saints tomorrow night. I'm not sure what time they come on or anything, but I'll share the link Under the Dome.
Yeah.
In the meantime, thanks.
Tell Tony and the boys I said hi.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they're going to be like, oh, you think this is going to be a gimme win? I'm going to let them. They got some gallows humor about their team.
They do.
Let them talk about, kind of set it up for me. So, but in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. As always, keep Sean in your prayers. As I get updates on him, I will share them along with you guys. And Bob, great seeing you this weekend.
You too.
Do it again. Absolutely. We're going to hit the steakhouse though next time. That's what we're going to do.
Poor Lauren was just so, and she still enjoyed the dinner. Our last night there was last night, and we went to Ruth's Chris. And she still enjoyed it, but that poor girl was hit hard by allergies on Sunday. And you look at that because she posted pictures throughout the weekend, and you can just see the deterioration in her face.
That's what New Orleans does to you,
right?
That's what New Orleans does.
But yeah, we so enjoyed our dinner with you and Debbie and Matt at Emerald's. It's the first, I think it's the first 5 hour, legitimate 5 hour dinner I've ever had with anybody. Because they were so slow with the course. But the food was great, the company was greater. So thank you all three.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna hit the steakhouse next time. I'm gonna take you guys to Desi Vega or Mr. John. See
Yeah.
those, and we'll knock that out. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. Keep Sean in your prayers, and we'll see you next week on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.